Have you ever wanted to play a game, but that game is heavily centered around multiplayer, and all your friends are busy having an actual life, like scrolling TikTok, or scrolling Instagram Reels, or scrolling YouTube Shorts, or being employed, so you return to your gamer hole in an attempt to play it by yourself, and you just end up having a worse time than that one time your girlfriend came up to you in high school right before your PE class and said, "I think we should smash with other people," but you don't remember her ever owning a Nintendo Switch. Video games have always been a social activity. Whether it's single player or multiplayer, people have always been sharing their experiences by talking with friends, posting online, or actually sitting down and playing it together. Growing up, my family primarily had single player games. Pac-Man World 2, Lord of the Rings The Two Towers, Arkham City, and Skyrim, to name a few. And most of these games didn't even have a multiplayer option. And many of those games that did have a multiplayer option weren't all that exciting. Often it was some kind of versus mode or something that didn't have much in the way of interactivity or content.
Wow! Can I play?
Oh, yeah, sure, here. You can be player 2.
Which one am I?
You're all the bad guys and you're trying to kill me.
Ooh, almost got you there.
Yeah, sure, buddy.
Wow, I love video games.
Even though we did have games that had great multiplayer modes, like classic Battlefront 2, Lego Star Wars, and Portal 2, unless it was Wii Sports, even those games were played as single-player games 90% of the time. But that was just the nature of video games within my home. They were played primarily by me and my brother. Everyone else in my family only had a passing interest in video games, again, unless it was Wii Sports. But even that didn't stop us from watching each other play games on the basement TV or trying out those half-baked multiplayer modes from time to time. The problem was, they got boring fast. And so, with few people truly interested, a skill gap that quickly grew into a skill chasm, and very few multiplayer games that were actually fun to play, single player just became the way to play. Also, back when I was a kid, when it really came down to it, single player was just so much better in every conceivable way. More options for play, a story mode with cutscenes, better graphics, and you got the whole screen to yourself. All that sweet, sweet real estate to see enemies in crystal clear 480p detail instead of a pixelated smear that you can't tell if it's a bush or your buddy with a rocket launcher who's about to TK you in your gamer hole. Single player was my favorite way to play anyway. Complete control over what was happening on screen was what I found to be the most valuable. Always challenging myself against the computer and my own skills, going super in-depth, exploring the details and the quirks of the video game, not getting butthurt because my older brother was way better than me at nearly every game we played. We had a lot of fights.
Mom said it's my turn with Lego Slave Leia!
I didn't need multiplayer to have fun in games. From my perspective, multiplayer wasn't all that great overall, and while it was a fun game mode sometimes, it really just felt like I was playing by myself with another person, if that makes sense. And to me, the point of video games was to play the main character in a story or campaign and challenge your skills against that. Solving puzzles, exploring, fighting enemies, leveling up. That's what I was looking for and what I expected out of a game. I didn't need to play with anybody else. Strangely enough, the most fun that I've ever had playing video games was with my buddy Aaron, pictured here. Oh, sorry, not that one. Yeah, that's the one. When we played video games, we wouldn't sit and play traditional multiplayer games like Call of Duty or Mario Kart or any sport game for that matter. We would always turn to a single player experience where we would spend our time talking and joking while swapping the controller back and forth throughout the story. And that's about all we did. One of us would have a game that we really enjoyed and we wanted to share with the other, so we'd pop that bad boy in and play through it each time we got together. Everything was on the table, and the games that I remember most prominently were Life is Strange, Batman Arkham Knight, Until Dawn, Insomniac Spider-Man, and FTL, but there were many, many more. I think one of the coolest single-player challenges I ever did with a friend was where we played through a little bit of Breath of the Wild, but with each of us holding one Joy-Con. So one of us would be controlling the movement and the shield, and the other one would be controlling, the interaction and the sword swinging and the bow. It was really interesting and unique having to coordinate what we're doing and what our plan is to do next. Having to balance all of that together through a single player experience is very unique, and one that I actually recommend you guys trying out for yourselves. It's a very cool challenge. One of the most interesting things about gaming that I love is that even the most single player focused game can be made into multiplayer through challenges, sharing the controller, or watching a stream. There's nothing more fun than showing your best friend a game you love, teaching them the controls, and then watching them not only start to understand the game, but to love it themselves, and then eventually get their own copy so they can play it with you when you're not around, just because they loved it so much. Aaron and I did this with so many different games. FTL, Dead Cells, Balatro. It was the best way to get exposed to new games that you likely never would have heard of otherwise. Even better, you can try a game without any risk of disliking it and wasting your hard-earned birthday money. I'm looking at you, Ultimate NES Remix. Get out of here. Go. Shoo. Seriously? Screw that game. It was not at all what I expected it to be. Unfortunately, all that time that I spent against the same maps, puzzles, and enemies really gave me a big head. No one in my family could compete. Playing against my friends was super casual. I had understood my enemies inside and out and explored games in such depths from the safety of offline single player that my estimation of my skills were far beyond what they actually were. Like a freshman going to their first Smash tournament only to get 75th place, because that's technically the position everyone got when they didn't make the actual bracket, I believed that I was faster and smarter than everyone else. Of course, I got humbled really quickly. It took a long time for me to get caught up to speed with how everyone else was playing online games, because I was treating games as if I was still facing mindless drones. Even today, I still feel inadequate when playing any sort of competitive first-person shooter, but at least now I have confidence in what abilities I do have, and I can accept when I fail. It wasn't always like that though. I used to rage at games like Apex Legends and Splitgate because the longer I played and the more that I knew about the game, the better I believed myself to be, and if I didn't meet the unrealistic, unobtainable heights of my expectations in a game, I beat myself up to the point where I no longer enjoyed it. Here's a little bit of Ben Does lore for you. I used to make Splitgate content back in the day. That's right, your boy used to make videos for a game that was never much bigger than the trend that came after it. I stopped because, you guessed it, nobody freaking played that game, man. Oh yeah, and they stopped development on it to work on their sequel. So right as I was getting into it, the momentum was taken completely out of my portals. Which is fine, it doesn't bother me, I'm not mad, that was over 5 years ago now. Splitgate was a game that I loved and wanted to be the best at, and I got really good. But I ruined the experience for myself by demanding that I be the best. At least I got some video editing skills out of it though. My choices in gaming when it comes to anything multiplayer nowadays is almost exclusively something that I'll play with friends and will be some form of cooperative game. If I am playing anything competitive, it's likely to be just between my friends and I, so there's no real pressure. Heck, even when I'm playing a competitive shooter, if my friends are in the party, I'm chillin'. I'm doing my best to win, but we're talking and joking around so much that it doesn't even matter what happens to us. I love Marvel Rivals, but I have yet to open that game by myself. I will not touch that game without a friend in my squad, because I know the competitive nature of the game will get to me and make me mad. But there is nothing more hilarious than all of us ganging up on the toxic player in chat, getting mad that we lost a match in quick play. Brother, I'm here to chill and dick around with heroes I've never used, okay? You want to try hard and go for metas and win all the time? Go play ranked, okay? Quick play is for plebs like me who are only here to play every now and then. The nature of multiplayer is one that can be both extremely satisfying and completely frustrating. We can all think of times where we've rage quit because you just get stomped by the enemy team with no hope of winning, or when your teammates are completely brain dead and act worse than bots. On the other hand, there's nothing more satisfying than when your team is in perfect sync and you're all picking up each other's slack, assisting when in danger, and just overall working like you've been practicing for months. I love being able to play games with friends. Multiplayer was made for that. Even the oldest video games ever, such as Pong, were made with multiplayer in mind. Granted, it wasn't a complex game, but from the very beginning, multiplayer was always considered. Who doesn't want to experience something with someone else? Who doesn't want to compete with their friends or rivals? It's actually incredible that I can be anywhere in the world and my friend can be just about anywhere else, and we can still interact nearly flawlessly through an internet connection. And because video games are video games, we're not locked into just interacting through a pixelated Skype call, rest in peace. Instead, we can play virtually any game that we own together, and it doesn't even have to be multiplayer or have internet functionality. With streaming, and in particular, Steam's Remote Play Together feature, only one of us has to own the game, and we can live stream the video to them, and they can interact with player 2 as if they were on the couch with me. It's an insane feature that you just get to use for free by having a Steam account, and you won't see any other gaming company give you this. Sure, it is a little janky at times, and you gotta have a solid internet connection to do it, but when it works, it opens up so many more gaming doors for you. Huh?
Hey, what's up? I'm Librascope, and I make gaming editorials and long-form critiques that some people have called smart, and the best thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Where can I give you my money? For reasons I'll never understand. Need any help?
Oh, hey there, Mr. Scope. Can I call you Mr. Scope?
Let's go with Libra, or Libro, or maybe Sir Librascope, or Gary. My name's not Gary, but I've always wanted to try and be a Gary. No, you know what? Too much, too fast. Just Libra is fine.
Well, Libra, I don't know why you're here or what you're doing in my video.
Oh, I just queued up for quick play.
On YouTube?
Yeah, it's a new feature they're testing to bring creators together. It's in beta right now. You probably don't have access to it.
Oh, yeah. Can't say that I do. We're gonna have a talk about that, YouTube. But since you're here, do you want to help me out? I'm talking about single player versus multiplayer in gaming.
I think I've got a thing or two I can say about that.
My experience with single-player and multiplayer games has been rather tumultuous and varied. Like a lot of people, I spent most of my time playing single-player offerings growing up, until we found that one multiplayer title that would survive in our rotation for months and months. Sometimes that was games like Smash Bros. Melee or Perfect Dark, where we were primarily playing against each other. Dragon Ball Z Budokai 3 was another one that my friend Carlos and I played endlessly against each other. But there were also co-op experiences here and there. These just usually didn't last as long, because back in the day, there weren't a lot of options like Minecraft where you could co-op endlessly. I grew up in the era where most co-op experiences were linear and maybe lasted 5 to 10 hours. They may or may not have involved the central story mode. On rare occasions though, you'd end up with a Splinter Cell Chaos Theory, where it had an entirely separate co-op campaign to explore. When online play became a thing, I didn't really have the means to partake until around 2008 or so. By then, most of the PS2 games I could have played online for free using my brother's PS2 Slim didn't have many people playing anymore, and I didn't have the money to play through Xbox Live Gold very often. So while I did play some games online on Xbox, most of my experience was with my brother's PS3 until 2011, where I got a PS3 of my own. My brother and I, and other friends and I, never stopped playing couch co-op games during that time, Resident Evil 5 being a favorite, but it became less common as games continued to drop the feature for performance or cost-saving reasons. Many of my early time playing online was spent trying to get a nuke in Modern Warfare 2. That was where I really cut my teeth in online versus play, which was both a good and bad thing. Unlike Ben, however, I actually ended up learning just how good I was at certain types of games. The single game I probably played online the most, maybe ever, was Gran Turismo 5. Shuffle races, drift lobbies, drag race lobbies, car meet lobbies, I did it all, and I loved every moment of it. And to my surprise, I was dang competitive. The same could be said for the game Paladins when that came to PS4 in 2017. I jumped at the chance to play a free-to-play hero shooter at the time, and because I got in on the ground floor, I was able to keep up with the metas and mechanical changes really well. This was also the only time I meaningfully got a handful of my friends to join in on versus multiplayer, since they're generally really adverse to it. Those same friends are my hardcore Monster hunter buddies now, which I absolutely don't mind, but I miss being able to ride with them into battle against other players, or even compete directly with them. What I'm probably missing the most these days is a sim racing buddy, which I only had back in the days of couch co-op multiplayer in Gran Turismo 4. I lead with all of that backstory because one of my biggest issues with modern multiplayer games is that they're all too competition focused now. Trust me, I too got annoyed every time someone was running around with the infinite noob tube setup in Modern Warfare 2, which is why in subsequent games I often went through prestige ranks purely in alternative modes like gun game or one in the chamber. But there was also something valuable in games that were okay not being perfectly balanced. The salt was easier to wade through in games like that because you didn't feel like you were letting people down if you had a bad match. These days I have pretty severe anxiety when it comes to versus multiplayer when I'm by myself. I'll go back to Paladins and play a few matches before realizing I don't know half of these characters, and I'm holding the team back. Same thing with Rainbow Six Siege, which doubles up on the issues because it's way harder to earn new characters in that than Paladins. If I don't have the operator our team really needs, it ruins the whole feel of the match and makes me play worse. I'll play a sport mode race in Gran Turismo 7, and as soon as I touch wheels with someone and ruin their line, my brain is like, nope, finish this race and then you're done for the day because you should have done better and not gotten so close to ruining that guy's race. These games have gotten so competitive, and the way people play them has grown the toxic traits to match, that unless I get in early and can stomp people, I get too anxious to keep playing. So when nobody I know wants to play those games with me to ease that burden, I just don't. It was way easier when the games were unbalanced, because even though people were still incredibly toxic, the stakes felt much lower. I don't necessarily want every multiplayer game I play to be broken, but I think there's a lot of value in options that can lower those stakes and allow players to become confident in elements of a multiplayer experience before moving on to include others. Gun game and those other alternative modes in Call of Duty are a good example. They often are modes that don't rely on teams, so if you fail, you only fail yourself. And gun game in particular can get you comfortable with the core gameplay and a wealth of the weapons on offer before you jump into something like Search and Destroy, Hardcore, or even just basic team deathmatch. I value alternative ways to play a lot, and I have since I was a kid. I'd argue fighting games as a whole were far better in the late 90s and the 2000s, because they didn't expect every player to be a try-hard expert. So they'd include story modes and weird quirky survival modes, and weapons with stats and unique abilities, all in service to the player who didn't want their early learning experience to feel like schoolwork. Sure, you could disable or ignore all of that stuff, but if you wanted it there, it provided a wealth of extra playtime. The same is true of sim racers, for the record. Even if you have to create your own custom alternative mode from scratch, that can be worth it if it's possible. The first time I played through Final Fantasy VII as a kid, the friend who was letting me play his copy played it alongside me. Sometimes I'd do battles, and sometimes he'd do battles to help teach me. Similarly, I think I'll always maintain that the best way to play through a new Souls game for the first time is to play it in pseudo couch co-op. Agree on a starting character, and one player starts first. If they die, they hand the controller over. Every death, the player switches. Same thing happens if you finish an area boss. In one of the older PS2 James Bond games, there was a rocket launcher that allowed you to control the rocket from its perspective after you shot it. So what we used to do is, without screen peeking, hide our characters somewhere on the map with this rocket launcher, and then both players would use the rockets to try and find and kill the other person before they themselves were found. Basically, hide and seek with rockets. Smash Bros. Was also ripe with opportunity to play in different ways, thanks to the way you could customize matches, and eventually the level creation system. In Melee, that friend Carlos I mentioned earlier and I did one specific custom game mode a lot. What you do is you set the starting damage on each player to the max, the stock count to 99, and turn off all items except for the various types of bombs and healing items. If you could survive long enough to get yourself back to normal health, you were at a huge advantage for a while, but otherwise basically any damage or explosion that made contact with you was instant death. In Brawl, meanwhile, with its custom stage creator, we would build something known as the box. I think my brother initially came up with it. As the name implies, it was a box shape that surrounded the entire stage. In one of the top corners, a single platform would be the type that you could fall or fly through. Set your stocks low, and then at the start, everyone goes inside the box and you fight. If you did it right, many of the items will still spawn in the box with everyone. Because it's so hard to fly out of the box, everyone starts getting to such high percentages of damage that they get launched like a pinball across the inside of the box. Your goal is to try to hit them at the right angle and with the right type of attack so that they're ricocheted or outright shot out of the top corner of the box. This one was particularly effective if you had friends who normally couldn't keep up and always wanted to play team matches, because it didn't matter how good or bad you were, since everyone was guaranteed to end up at high percentages where getting hit once at the right moment could spell the end. Ultimately, I feel like there's just less of this player expression in a lot of multiplayer these days, unless the game is built like a sandbox. And personally, I want to see a return to multiplayer games that might be a bit poorly balanced, but that can provide easy, effective multiplayer action whether you win or lose. I'd similarly like to see a return to richer games with high skill floors like racing sims and fighting games, rather than those games only catering to a thin multiplayer focus. It's great to care about your ranked match rating, and sometimes I do too, but I don't want non-ranked multiplayer to simply be a mirror of that experience, but with incentives stripped out to punish you for using it, you know?
Couldn't have said it better myself. There are an infinite amount of ways to experience a video game, especially when you break the rules and go outside of the norm a bit. Really take a game to its limits and make your own fun out of it. We don't need to be fully immersed into the toxic, always online, meta-baiting multiplayer modes, but we also don't need to completely isolate ourselves to the empty lobbies of single-player games. We can play games the way we want to, with who we want to, and the only limit to how we play is your imagination. Thank you for watching the video. I greatly appreciate it. It means so much to me, and especially big, huge, enormous thanks to LibraScope for being willing to do this collaboration with me. Make sure you go check out the collab we did on his channel, links in the description. Really good video. I think it's a banger. You're gonna love it. I got a couple questions for you guys though who are still here. How do you guys like to play your games? Are you more centered towards single player or multiplayer? What are your thoughts on the differences between single and multiplayer games? How have you broken the mold on traditional play? That's what I'm really curious about. What are different ways that you've done, for example, the Joy-Con thing that I explained earlier? I'm really excited to hear that. Can't wait to have a discussion in the comments. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, all that regular jazz, whatever. Keep doing stuff, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.
You can do super close up, like the like way up here. It's just like, I love video games. I love them.
That's actually really, wait a minute.